Yes, hello everybody, fourth year. Nice to meet you again, so welcome, my sweet students. In this poem, written by T.S. Eliot, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Festival. Who is Eliot? He is one of the most important, significant poets of the 20th century. Eliot was American by birth, was born in America at that time. Then he became the citizen of Britain in 1927. As a great poet in modern age, he has contribution to English poetry, drama, and criticism. So he was a poet, essayist, publisher, journalist, dramatist, and a critic. Like any other great poet in English literature, his poetry is characterized by some features. Number 1. Difficulty and obscurity. Eliot's poetry is so difficult and so obscure, ambiguous, mysterious because he decided to write a new kind of poetry which requires some effort and some brain work. It also shows the complexity of his poetry that reflects the complexity of modern life. Eliot's use of the mythical method, symbolic technique, implication, allusions, references, and quotations. Number 2. The mythical method, which means objective correlative, a series of emotions and impressions which originate in the poet's mind to express a human life in the past and the present. Actually, here the poet Eliot wants to tell us that his mind is like store house full of images, emotions actually. Objective correlative, the poet means he wants to collect two ideas, two thoughts, two ideas taken from different literary works. For example, if he wants to write about the character of Hamlet, for example, you know Hamlet is taken from Shakespeare's Hamlet. The character of Hamlet is taken from the play written by William Shakespeare. And then he wants to say, for example, Prufrock is Hamlet. Means what? Hamlet is a symbol of hesitation in English literature. So, for example, if we would like to say, a Prufrock is Hitler. Hitler is what? Is a symbol of power, tyranny, corruption. You can see that. So that is what? Objective correlative. Actually, the poet wants to tell us that he shows that two contrasting ideas taken from different works. Number 3. A dramatic monologue. A dramatic monologue, as you know, is a kind of poem actually. We find a speaker with a silent, fictional, imaginary listener. So we find speaker and listener, because speaker speaking to a silent, fictional, or imaginary listener. But in a dramatic monologue, actually, we find some features should have some items, like the speaker, like listener, like, for example, the occasion, like revelation of the character. You see this? And Eliot's poetry is a dramatic, full of effectiveness, It has a dramatic quality which creates characters as a prologue that will be obscure, mysterious, ambiguous. A dramatic monologue. Actually, the poet wants to tell us that his character, a prologue in his poem, is like any literary character, means a dramatic quality. When we say, for example, Macbeth, King Lear, Dr. Faustus, for example, or we can say, for example, any character taken from any drama, like, for example, Bluntschli, Sergius in Shaw's, G.B. Shaw's Arms and the Man, has what? A dramatic quality. Means actually the poet wants to associate his character, his personality with that character, like a prologue as a modern man in modern society. So the poet Eliot recognizes that the human self has a struggle between good and evil, spiritual and sensuous. Symbolism. Symbolism, first of all, we find image. When you say, for example, please, my friend, look at, for example, that a rose. When you look at that a rose, actually it is image, picture, taken from the mind you have as a human being. But if you would like to have a function of that image, means what? Symbol. You can say, for example, a rose is an image, but rose has function. Image in your mind has function. Yes, of course, it will be what? A symbol. So rose is a symbol of beauty, innocence, romance, according to the point of view of the author, writer, poet, and the others. So symbols, so important, significant, make the language, the content of the text suggestive, creative, expressive, so rich. A symbol can be used to convey pure sensations, because, as you know, the poet has pure feelings. Eliot is a great symbolist, can create symbols from his store, I mean his great mind. Eliot, like the other poets in his age, has two kinds of symbols. Number one, traditional symbols. Traditional, general. Like when we say rose. Oh, rose. Do you remember that, my students? Okay. So rose is a symbol of beauty, is a symbol of innocence and the others. But when you say second kind of symbols, personal symbols, personal, private, means what? Means the poet has private person in his mind. So rose is a symbol of his sweetheart, maybe is a symbol of his little girl, little daughter. Number 5, from Eliot's features in writing his poetry, imagery. Who's the father of imagery in English literature? Actually, number 1, we can say, first of all, ancient poetry, Edmund Spenser. Then, who's the father of imagery in English literature, English poetry? My beloved John Keats, the superior poet in English poetry. Imagery. Eliot decorates the language of his poetry with the use of imagery. Imagery can convey abstract ideas or emotional states. Images can convey his intellectual and emotional complex. Intellectual and emotional complex means the poet can have, for example, what? Two items. Can be intellectual and emotional means his poetry can have intellectuality and emotionality. Intellectuality or intellectual refers to science, emotional refers to sensations. The love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. What is in this long love song of J. Alfred Prufrock? First of all, Eliot starts with beginning. What is inside that beginning? Epigraph. Epigraph means the beginning of the poem. Epigraph of this poem is taken from Dante's Inferno. What is in Dante's Inferno? You know Dante? Dante is old, ancient poet, a great one at that time. So old, with Tasso, Virgil, Ovid, and the others. Dante's Inferno. Guido, the leading character, the major character, character number one in Dante's Inferno is in hell at that time. So the poet wants to compare his character Prufrock with that Guido. Both of them are hopeless, melancholic, sorrowful, spleenful. Guido is coming from hell at that time. So it is so important to keep in your mind about this. For example, epigraph that is taken from Dante's Inferno. So the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Let us go, then you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky, like a patient authorized upon a table. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights in one-night cheap hotels, and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells, streets that fellow like a tedious argument of insidious intent to lead you to an overwhelming question. Oh, don't ask, what is it? Let us go and make our visit. So enough. Actually, you can keep these lines in your mind, but the poem is so important. We can take, for example, parts, fragments, just to select images, illusions, symbols, themes, and the others from this long song. Okay? But the lines you can keep in your mind, actually these lines, 14 or 15 lines, you can keep them in your mind, or just 10, 11, 12 lines you can keep in your mind, please, my sweet students. So let us go, then you and I. This poem is not about love song in the traditional sense of the term. It is an analysis of the mind of the lover that is unable to take a decision about making a proposal to the lady he loves. It is an internal debate in the mind of Prufrock between the two sides of his personality. It is an exposition of the moods and conflicts of the mind of Prufrock. He speaks the song to himself. Let us begin, my students. It is evening time. Prufrock is helpless, like a patient authorized upon a table. He has no strength left in him to act. Mentally he wanders, walks through half-deserted streets, till his mind reaches to the question before him. The question refers to his proposal to the lady he likes. He reaches the cheap restaurant. Actually, he wants to eat fish, maybe. He wants to eat pizza or chicken at night there. That so cheap restaurant, because actually he doesn't have enough money in his pocket. Oh my God, that is a proof actually, as a modern man in modern society, bankrupt, manless. So he reaches the cheap restaurant where he finds some women talking and discussing about Michelangelo. They are just talking, speaking, discussing about that great artist Michelangelo. They would like just to speak about the character, the personality of Italian painter or artist Michelangelo, discussing about something they know or don't know. Actually, that is not important. It is the fashion of the lady to talk about the paintings of great masters. He was close to some of them, but he had no courage, bravery to speak out his mind. He's afraid of ladies. As I told you, oh my God, poor Frank doesn't have enough money just to eat fish or that in a cheap restaurant, maybe. He's afraid of ladies. Why? Because the ladies, for example, will kill him, or they would like to do what, for example? Why he is afraid of them? He's afraid of making a proposal to ladies, and his problem is how to begin. Actually, this is very important. Keep in your mind about the view of T.S. Eliot in his modern poetry. His character is so weak, fragile, weakling. He mentions Prufrock, mentions some of his friends who will marry. Yes, welcome, no problem. Who will marry to the ladies, but he cannot mention his name. Why? He cannot mention his name. Why? They would like to kill him or what? Kidnap him? You can say your name, my dear Prufrock. Why you are shy? Oh my God, he cannot mention his name. Why? Actually, I don't know why he doesn't have courage. He thinks if he tells any lady about his love, maybe she will refuse him. He begins thinking of his shabby shape in front of ladies as such, like he is a sick, inactive man. Prufrock makes an excuse for himself that there will be time to act, but it is irony. There is no ability to speak. So Prufrock, as the main character in this poem, can be characterized in 4 sides. Number 1, mental side. Prufrock doesn't have any good idea. He is a trivial, useless, trite. Number 2, physical side. He is alone in this modern, harsh, difficult life. He has no confidence in his personality. Number 3, spiritual side. He is dead now. He is aimless and lost. And number 4, beautiful side. He is bald, old, thin, slim, tall, and weak. He is a lost soul because of his sin of hesitation and procrastination. So he is spiritually dead. That is the love song of J. Eliford Prufrock. Actually, we can take images, themes, allusions, means references, symbols, and sources, depend upon them in his poem. In all long song. Images, for example, we find number 1, the evening looks like a patient authorized upon table. Number 2, The streets suggest the tedious arguments. Number 3, the image of the fog as a cause suggests inertia, solitariness, and the inaction of Prufrock. Number 4, the sea reveals the inner self of Prufrock. The mermaids. Number 5, suggests the romantic. Well, because he wants to escape from his harsh, difficult life to imaginary, a dreamy, romantic, beautiful world. Actually, this idea, we can say there is a similarity between this point and the point that is drawn in Sailing to Byzantium by Yeats, because he wants to leave his country, Ireland, to sail through his imagination to Byzantium as a perfect city. That is, as you know, our imagination is stored in the form of a book. And themes. This poem deals with the theme of the dilemma of modern man, because the modern man has many problems, dilemmas. Prufrock, who represents the modern man, is the victim of frustration and indecision. Number 2, Prufrock's hesitation shares directly to his inactivity and meaninglessness. Prufrock's anxiety is rooted in such society. He is not only afraid of contact with the women or ladies, but intimidated by his state. You see? And we can say, for example, something about allusions. Allusions references so many kinds we find in literature, but in this poem, allusions used by Eliot, two kinds. Number 1, John the Baptist. John refers to the prophet Yahya alayhi salam. John the Baptist is a biblical allusion used by Eliot in this poem as what? As objective correlative, as I told you before. John the Baptist is a Jewish preacher and prophet who rejected the love of Salome. She was a dancer. She pleased Herod the king by her dancing, and as a reward gift, Herod severed the head of the Baptist and brought it to her on a plate. Oh my God, it is a crime. Oh my God. Number 2, the poet compares the main character of his poem to that of Shakespeare's Hamlet. Hamlet is a literary character. Hamlet here, Shakespeare's Hamlet as a play, literally allusion or reference. So the poet compares himself with Hamlet, or Prufrock, compares himself with Hamlet because of his hesitation. Then the poet compares Prufrock with Polonius because he is old and thin. He wants to appear young with the latest clothes. He wants to be fashion, just to take pictures and to send to Facebook or Instagram. Oh my God, Prufrock. And then he is unable to face the problems of life. Lazarus, number 3, who comes back to life after his death by Jesus Christ. Eliot wants to show that people are spiritually dead in modern age. So what about symbols used by Eliot in his poem? Prufrock, number 1, is a symbol of weakness of modern man in a modern society. Number 2, Michelangelo is a symbol of art and painting. Number 3, the cat symbolizes the personality of Prufrock's psychological statement. Prufrock's risk in doing romantic relationships. Number 4, the yellow fog is a symbol of Prufrock's timidity and the dirty environment of city life. Mermaid, number 5, is a symbol of beauty and attractiveness. Sources. Eliot, as a great poet, depends on some sources in his poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. First of all, the beginning of his poem means or is called epigraph, is taken from Dante's Inferno. We find Guido the major character, like our character Prufrock. Both of them are hopeless, sorrowful, melancholic, and the others. Number 2, metaphysical school. The evening looks like a patient authorized upon a table. 3, Shakespeare's Hamlet. When the poet compares Prufrock with Hamlet and Polonius for a Greek drama, because Prufrock has a neurotic personality. A neurotic personality, he has, or he got something like laziness, craziness, and the others. Careless personality means the character is so weak in taking his resolution or decision. Number 5, romantic school. The title of this poem is a love song, which refers to the idea of romance, but actually there is no love. There is no love. There is no love. Prufrock dreams about the mermaids and the sea wavers. He has seen mermaids singing to one another. He has seen them riding on the waves. Finally, I would like to give you 2 great gifts for my students. They are 2 questions. Keep in your mind. Try to answer them with yourself. If you have imagination, live in your dream to answer these questions. Number 1, how does the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock by the poet Eliot reveal Eliot's consciousness of the modern society, the modern city? Try to answer this question first of all, and then, what is the source of Prufrock's imagination when he was beside the women in a hotel? And thanks so much for your listening for these notes, for long poem with long talk, long dialogue today with you. And nice to meet you, my students. God bless you, and keep these information notes in your mind. And thank you so much. God bless you. Bye.